We know you never leave Grandma's house hungry or empty-handed. Her home has enough of food and desserts for holidays and Sunday suppers. These recipes evoke childhood. Start with Grandma's cornflake peanut butter cookies, a childhood favorite. These were common in Grandma's cookie jars. Its peanut butter filling and crispy cornflakes were the greatest parts of this delectable treat. This cookie was popular in the 1950s. The dish was popular because it was simple and used common ingredients. Wasn't Grandma the best at using anything she could find in the kitchen to feed us? Families treasured the recipe as it was passed down. They were ideal for family gatherings and after-school snacks. In case you're nostalgic, I found this recipe. Peanut butter, cornflakes, sugar, butter, and other basic ingredients are needed. Best part? These cookies are easy to make. Made using Grandma's secret recipe, handmade blueberry pie is unmatched. Grandma's blueberry pie was the star of Thanksgiving parties, but it was also a summer treat and a great way to showcase fresh, ripe blueberries. Grandma's version had a flaky, buttery crust with a blueberry-filled filling, like eating summer. This pie originates from colonial America, when blueberries were abundant and utilized in many cuisines. Grandma loved this recipe, cooked from scratch with fresh, local blueberries in summer. It's hard to find blueberries at their peak these days, thus that pie disappeared from many tables. The ground beef casserole in Grandma's cookbook was comfort food at its best, as were her casseroles. Remember when this baked bliss was the best evening meal? Ground meat and veggies were covered with crispy cheese or breadcrumbs. If you begged, Granny would lighten the carrots. This casserole was a family favorite and weeknight staple. This recipe originated in the 1950s when casseroles were a cheap method to serve a crowd. Grandma's version was praised for its rich flavor and how it drew the family together at supper. It's out of style, but you can still phone Grandma to get that secret recipe. Who recalls egg yolk cookies? This dish may surprise you. Egg yolk cookies were delicate and often ignored, but Grandma's were legendary. They were buttery and airy, melting in your lips. However, they were generally the last in Grandma's cookie tin and weren't everyone's favorite. How these cookies were created is a good tale. Some say these were a delicious accident when a granny used up leftover egg yolks from other dishes. This was especially true when home bakers made many custards and puddings. Grandma's egg yolk cookies were distinct in taste and texture. Speaking of odd cookies, who says they must be sweet? Great-Grandma's sour cream drop cookies were wonderful. Sour cream is the last ingredient you think of when you think of cookies, yet it made our childhoods 1,000 times better. Sour cream made these cookies moist and tangy. An early 20th century baking staple, sour cream added moisture and flavor to cookies and cakes. All baking manuals say they are the simplest cookies. The dough is so soft that it slips off the spoon onto the baking sheet, hence the name drop cookies. This cookie was typically glazed or powdered to fool kids into believing it was sweet. Sour cream cookies show that unexpected flavors can be startling. Let's discuss Grandma's chouflée pie. Calls to mind? This Pennsylvania Dutch classic tasted American. Old family picnics included Grandma's chouflée pie. It was a cozy, distinctive pie with a memorable flavor. Molasses filling made chouflée pie delicious. A rich, sticky blend of molasses, brown sugar, and spices. Chouflée pie, named for its need to shoo flies from the sweet molasses filling, was popular in the 19th century. Grandma's pie was a Christmas meal highlight, served with coffee. Best part? This pie was easy to create despite its menacing appearance. No list is complete without Grandma's baking powder biscuits. Nothing beats the smell of fresh baked biscuits, and Grandma's baking powder biscuits were better than any bakery's. Buttery and fluffy, they vanished quickly. These biscuits made with baking powder were a quick and easy way to make fresh bread. Grandma didn't just make this recipe up, it was science. Buttermilk reacted with baking powder to generate air pockets, giving biscuits their rise. These biscuits may have been made in the late 19th century when baking powder became widely available and changed household baking. Grandma's cherry salad is memorable. It may seem odd, but this dish is classic. It was 1,000,000 times better than your typical salad and a kid favorite. Imagine a creamy mixture of canned cherries, marshmallows, and frothy dressing. What's not to love? Fun was as important as flavor in this dish. Cherry orchard-rich Michigan, Wisconsin, and Ohio were most affected. Mid-20th century potlucks and family gatherings featured cherry salad and the habit of adding fruit to salads to make them dessert-like. Everyone wanted seconds of this salad, the crowd pleaser. This meal has mostly disappeared from modern menus, but those who remember it still smile. Next, let's get back to basics. Granny's sweet Hubbard squash custard pie was an unusual pumpkin pie substitute with a sweet, nutty flavor. This pie, inspired by a farm recipe or a hearty harvest feast, was a modest but popular dish in early American kitchens. For years, Hubbard squash and custard's rich, nutty flavor and creamy richness warmed family meals. It was a fall favorite. Many home cooks used Hubbard squash for its versatility and sweetness. Holiday feasts and other events featured Grandma's pie. With this, Grandma and others were ahead of their time. Okay, savory instead, then sweet. Don't be fooled by this next dish's simplicity. Grandma Mayo's spaghetti sauce is classic. Truthfully, spaghetti is America's national cuisine. It answers all our prayers when we can't pick what to eat after a long day. This spaghetti sauce was made by Granny with precision. Many family dinners featured this thick, savory sauce, cooked for hours to develop complex flavors. The sauce, made with ripe tomatoes, garlic, and herbs, drew people together at the table and still does in many regions of the country. This sauce's recipe may be from Italian-American family recipes. Though store-bought sauces have taken over our noodles, nothing beats homemade. For those who recall its labor of love, this is a classic. With this following one, Grandma revolutionized pastries with Hungarian nut rolls. Delicious spiral-rolled pastries filled with a sweet nut filling and baked until golden brown. Eastern European bakers prepared Hungarian nut rolls for special occasions and festivals. Rumor has it that a European grandmother tried to make cinnamon rolls instead of Hungarian nut buns. Unfortunately, she grabbed walnuts instead of cinnamon. Thank God for this lovely accident. Each family has adapted the dish. These rolls may be rarer now, but those who grew up with them still love them. Apple pie is the first thing that springs to mind when thinking of Grandma recipes. Grandma's apple pie, made from local orchard apples and a family recipe, was legendary. Pioneers carried pie making to America, where this delectable dessert originated. Grandma's lattice crust and cinnamon and nutmeg made it a wonderful fall and holiday delicacy. A delicious apple pie requires the right mix of sweet and bitter apples. For tartness, Granny Smith apples are popular, but use your favorite. Spices like cinnamon and nutmeg provide flavor. Most of us go through the McDonald's drive-thru when we want apple pie, but it's nothing compared to Grandma's homemade pie. Grandma's date nut bread was the perfect way to add nourishment to dessert. The date nut bread was created because grandmothers wanted us to obtain nutrition as well as sweetness. Why is this moist, delicious bread a classic? Our family relied on Grandma's date nut bread. It was great for breakfast, snack, and dessert. It had enough protein, fiber, and iron from chopped dates and crunchy nuts. Adding butter or cream cheese made it more decadent. Grandma's date nut bread brings back memories of simpler times and homemade delights, even though it's less popular today. Tell me about Mima's milk pudding. Many Southern kitchens served this comfortable dessert to cap a meal. Milk, sugar, and a hint of vanilla make it a classic illustration of how simple can be great. Milk pudding was a treat or means to use up leftover milk in early American cuisine. Grannies added nutmeg or whipped cream to make it fancier. You may not know that Mima's milk pudding is a simpler, older variant of rice pudding. Rice pudding is nicer, therefore milk pudding is best for basic, excellent food. Our next stop is Grandma McAndrew's Irish soda bread. Actually, this bread didn't have soda pop. Avoid Coca-Cola and Dr. Pepper. Only baking soda is needed. The bread is simple and delicious, made with flour, baking soda, buttermilk, and a little salt. In Ireland, baking soda replaced yeast to leaven bread. Its slightly acidic flavor and crusty surface made Grandma McAndrew's version ideal for sopping stews or eating with butter. This looks as wonderful as it tastes. The Christian cross on Irish soda bread is a charming tradition that gives this tasty bread meaning. Irish soda bread is adaptable too. Besides bread, you may make scones, muffins, and pancakes. Great-grandma's peach cobbler rivaled apple pie in the past. Sweet, juicy peaches were topped with a buttery, biscuit-like crust in this classic dessert. Peach cobbler originated in the American South, where summer peaches are abundant. With its ideal combination of sweet and tangy flavors and golden brown cobbler topping, Great-grandma's recipe was loved. It was comfort food perfection served warm with vanilla ice cream. It was also served everywhere in bakeries, but it's now out of favor and replaced with more sophisticated desserts like peach crumble. Nothing tastes like Grandma's cooking, not even crumble cookies. Grandma's caramel popcorn balls were our only option until theater popcorn became popular. The best part? They weren't expensive. They were popular at movies and holidays. They were enjoyable to make and eat, made with freshly popped popcorn in a thick caramel sauce. Fun snack caramel popcorn balls were popular in the mid-20th century. Grandmas take things to new heights. Thus, her version was rolled into balls and occasionally topped with almonds or sprinkles. These goodies delighted kids and grown-ups. Though rarer today, they nonetheless offer a pleasure to anybody who remembers making and enjoying them. This one feels like a warm old hug. The famous meatloaf from Grandma, its warm aromas and pleasant texture made this meal a family supper favorite. Since the early 20th century, American meatloaf has been a cheap family meal. Its rich interior and delicious crust made Grandma's recipe popular. It started as a means to use leftover meat scraps, but became a comfort food classic with mashed potatoes and vegetables. This following one was my childhood favorite, talking about Granny's spice cookies. These holiday cookies with cinnamon, nutmeg, and cloves were a hit. Their spicy taste and fragrant perfume were famous. Serving them with hot chocolate or chai tea was the cherry on top. Spice cookies originated in medieval Europe when spices enhanced baked foods. The best Friday night pastime if you stay in is preparing spice cookies, which are no longer sold in bakeries. Let's finish with classic peanut brittle. Traditional candy making requires precision and patience only grandparents have, but the recipe is wonderful. The holiday's favorite crunchy, sweet dessert was produced by boiling sugar and corn syrup to the appropriate crack stage and adding roasted peanuts. I'll let Granny handle it. Many appreciated Grandma's peanut brittle for its crisp texture and generous amount of peanuts for crunch. Classic candy is still appreciated today, but Grandma's version is remembered by those who remember homemade delicacies. Did any of these Grandma recipes bring back good memories? Like this video, subscribe, and stay tuned for more nostalgia.